Right, so welcome to Gaming Politics Stuff. So today we're going to talk about Mayotte, which is a French département, because there were natural disasters recently, and I thought it was interested, and we said we'll talk about that. By the way, Jean-Marie Le Pen is dead. We won't just talk about him today because I think it's more interesting to analyze the character and to see how it was such an important individual when it came to neo-fascism and uh, how he evolved and how he participated in like building his party and um how he managed to seduce and how his party and his legacy managed to seduce new voters, especially young voters. So we'll do that in the coming days if you're interested. By the way, if you're interested, and if you like what you're watching, feel free to follow and to if you're watching on YouTube to like the video and to subscribe. It's gonna help me with the algorithm. So I'm gonna share my screen. So first of all, I think it is important to define what is Mayotte. So Mayotte, uh, officially the department of Mayotte, is an overseas department and region and single territorial collectivity in France. It is one of the overseas departments of France, as well as one of the 18 regions of France with the same status as the departments of metropolitan France. It is an outermost region of the European Union and as an overseas department of France, part of the Eurozone. So Mayotte is located in the northern part of Mozambique Channel. So we'll see on the map. Maybe we'll see on. All right. So it. All right. So east of Africa, next to the Comorin Islands, Comorin Archipelago, I think you say in English. And so, well, this is an important matter because we'll talk about this later. So, yeah. All right. So Mayotte consists of a main island, Grande Terre, or Maore, and a small island, Petite Terre, or Pamanzi, as well as several islets around these two. So French is the official language and is spoken as a second language by an increasing part of the population, with 63% of the population 40 years and older reporting in the 2007 census that they could speak it. There are two native languages of Mayotte. The most commonly used is Shimaore, and the less spoken is Malagasy. Is a Malagasy language called Kibushi. Sorry, purchased. The islands were populated by neighborhoods East Africa with a late arrival of Arabs who brought the religion faith of Islam. All right, so what does that mean? Um, it means, first of all, like ever since, there was a referendum in 2009 with an overwhelming results in favor of remaining in the status of a French department. So it means that basically, first, ever since March 2011, Mayotte is an official French department. It has the same status. Then it's an outermost region of the EU. So Mayotte has the same laws uh, and the same currency, the euro, because it is a French department. Even if there are adaptations because of the location and because of mainly the geographical isolation and the economic like the economic issues and the economic developments. So yeah, we'll talk about that, but there's a separate taxation regime. Um, the the there are specific state aids, and there are funds from the European Union. So I think it would be interesting to talk about that, about about the context right now, since we're talking about poverty. Um, because there was a cyclone. That's the main subject in Mayotte, obviously, but it led to it, it made people wonder what's going wrong, and it enabled problem issues to resurface. Of course, there were, I think, 31 deaths, stuff. So pretty big natural disaster, but there are also other socio-economical issues that this cyclone just highlighted in a way. So cyclones Chido lays bare Mayotte's poverty crisis and resource shortage. So Paris, December 18. So Mayotte was already struggling and overcrowding, illness and poverty before a devastating cyclone hit the French island territory at the weekend. Now, the aftermath of the cyclone Chido has led to accusations that Paris has neglected its far-flung overseas territories, leaving them with little protection when natural disasters strike. Mayotte was not prepared, said Racha Musdi, sorry for the pronunciation, president of the Mayotte is Thirsty Water Advocacy Group. More than 20 deaths. So now I think it's more than 31. At least 31 have been confirmed after Chido hammered the Indian Ocean archipelago, but officials say hundreds or even thousands more could be dead. Wait, we're gonna fact check this because right. So 39, uh, according to Reuters. Reuters, I think, which is a German. No, it was news agency. Right. No, the headquarters are in London. So it was funded that by a German dude, but it's actually British. All right. Anyway, there are 39 deaths, which is pretty huge. But like at the time when this article was written, there were only 20 official deaths. The inability to give even a vaguely accurate death, you see, 30 days after the storm hits underlines the challenges they face in what is France's poorest overseas territory. Right groups have long accused Paris of turning its back on overseas departments like Mayotte, which was colonized in 1843 and where more than 75% is roughly um, 321,000 people today live below France's national poverty rate. Um, Mayotte has France's lowest GDP per capita. So, like, for for your information, what is GDP? So GDP means gross domestic products. So it is the value of the products plus the services uh, within the boundaries of a specific country um, in a specific time period. So usually it is a year. It is like over a year, and so to make it simple, it is basically the income of a given country. So Mayotte has France's lowest GDP per capita compared with, so it is 6 times lower than what you would have in Paris, for instance, in Ile-de-France region. And there's the issue of the illegal immigration from the Comoros Islands. Comoros, all right, threatening anger among residents over crime, inflation, and stretched public services. And yeah, this is not an isolated case because other French island churches have also been rocked by protests this year, but they don't have the same status because uh, what is specific about Mayotte is that it is an actual département, the same way the Ile-de-France is. So it is pretty significant. Um, So one of the major concerns, apart from poverty, is actually illegal immigration in Mayotte. So when Cyclone Chido ravaged Mayotte's fragile infrastructure, it also exposed deep-seated tensions between the island's residents and its large migrant population. Thousands of people who would have entered the island illegally bore the brunt of the storm that tore through the Indian Ocean archipelago from Spurus territory. Again, authorities in Mayotte said many migrants avoided emergency shelters out of fear of deportation, leaving themselves in the precarious shanty town they inhabit even more vulnerable to the devastation. Meanwhile, anger shimmered among residents who accused the government of diverting the island's already scarce resources to migrants and at their expense. Mayotte is a French department located between Madagascar. All right. Why is this an issue? It's because in France you have two types of birthrights. You have the read it in the comments. So there's the blood thing. So you can be French by birth. So if one of your parents is French, or you can be French by territory. So there are two possibilities when it comes to territory. So the first one is if one of your parents was born in France, but they're not French, then you can acquire the French nationality. Um, Usually at the end, usually between like 16 years old and 18 years old, but it can be as early as like I think 13 years old. Yeah, sometimes 13. Right. So what happened is people usually migrate to Majorque, and then there's an issue with the acquisition of the French nationality, right? Because of these legal processes. So let's watch um, an extract about the cyclone.
French troops, rescue workers and aid are being rushed to Mayotte to help victims of the worst storm to hit the French Indian Ocean territory in almost a century. Cyclone Chido flattened whole neighbourhoods on Saturday and hundreds of people are feared dead. Power and communication lines have been ruptured and the airport and hospital are badly damaged. The cyclone has also caused damage in Mozambique. Louisa Pilbeam has the latest.
Poorly built homes with tin roofs never stood a chance against the power of Cyclone Chido. Winds of 140 miles per hour ripped flimsy neighbourhoods apart in Mayotte, a French island in the Indian Ocean. Hundreds have died, with the death toll feared far higher. Hospitals, schools, roads have been torn up in what French forecasters say is the worst storm in nearly a century. John Ballot filmed this in the capital Mamadzou, where the slums have been worst hit.
It was the wind blowing, and I was panicked. I screamed, "We need help, we need help." I was screaming because I could see the end coming for me.
Other people didn't escape, some swept away by flooding or buried in their houses. Many of the 300,000 population are without electricity, phone lines, internet, water and food. The French military are flying in medical supplies from a nearby island and getting teams on the ground.
Right now, we're encountering a number of difficulties in transporting all the staff and equipment needed for the victim rescue mission on the island of Mayotte. So here, there's a sort of cluster log that's being organised to bring together the men and equipment.
The aftermath in Mayotte is catastrophic. Now the cyclone is moving through the Mozambique Channel, with those in its path bracing themselves. Louisa Pilbeam, BBC News.
So let's take more detail on what's been going on. Our website is updating all the time with the latest on rescue efforts. As you were hearing from Louisa there, entire settlements were flattened in Mayotte. Rescue workers, including reinforcements from France, are desperately trying to search for any survivors. Let's speak to our correspondent in Nairobi, Richard Kago. Richard, what more can you tell us?
Yeah, so the rescue operation is currently underway. So we've had about 110 French soldiers who were deployed to the island just before the cyclone struck. And then yesterday we had another reinforcement of another 160. So they're basically assisting in terms of rescue and clearing operations. It's quite difficult actually to access most of the sites which were severely impacted because of the destruction that was done on the public infrastructure, including roads and bridges and also the country's main airport. So the situation is still very critical at this hour.
And also, of course, there is the desperate search for anyone who has survived, still trapped. But those who are trying to rebuild, etc., they talked about not being able to get basics such as water for many days already.
Yeah, it's very desperate for them because even just before the cyclone, the island was dealing with chronic water shortages, and now the destruction has just aggravated the situation. So we are staring at a major humanitarian crisis that would come as a result of the impacts of Cyclone Chido. So the relief being sent to the island in terms of medicine and food. Yesterday, a military aircraft arrived with 3 tons of medical supplies and also blood for transfusion and medical staff. So that's really going to be the point of focus. But as you say, it's a very poor island, and so majority of the people were living in shanty towns which are built using semi-permanent equipment, say such as metal roofs, and so majority of them really are staring at a despondency right now, not really knowing what really lies ahead.
Now, what about the cyclone itself, Chido? Causing chaos in Mozambique. What are you hearing about where it's headed next, or if it's reduced in terms of its intensity?
Yes, I just heard from weather experts in Mozambique who say that the cyclone has weakened in terms of strength. The last time I checked, striking the cyclone, it was at about 95 kilometers per hour in terms of the wind speeds. But when it landed in the coastal city of Pemba in northern Mozambique, it caused quite some bit of destruction. So schools, hospitals, and homes have also been damaged. Trees have been uprooted, and also electricity lines and communication lines have been cut off. And we saw a lot of people, especially within Malawi, towards the southern bits of the country around Blantyre, just trying to reinforce their houses in anticipation of the destruction that would be caused by the strong winds and the heavy rains that were coming.
All right, so anyway, what's important, in my opinion, to keep in mind is that this cyclone just basically, well, first of all, there were the casualties, the deaths, right, mainly, but then it highlighted the pre-existing matters, which were basically poverty, which were the immigration issues, illegal immigration issues, and which were everything which was, as they said, related to the infrastructures, especially water shortages due to the infrastructures, and these pre-existing issues got even worse with a cyclone, and so this led to tensions. Mostly between the population and the French government. So I found a video about that from France 24, which is the French state-owned publicity-funded international news television based in Paris. So usually it's pretty fact-based, right? There is no bias really when it comes to France 24. Anyway,
Find out. For the past several days, Sylviane Amavi has been going around her neighbourhood to find out people's needs and demands to pass them on to the government. Like this woman who lost everything.
We're asking them to send civil engineers immediately.
With other activists from her collective, Sylviane has written an open letter to the Prime Minister calling for help for disaster victims, among other things.
We're waiting on concrete measures. It's up to the state to take responsibility, and it's not doing that. Whatever happens, we mustn't be told it's the fault of this person or that person. They need to take responsibility.
Like many residents, the two women feel a deep sense of abandonment, and it's not just since the cyclone.
It's been like this for 10 to 15 years, fighting to change our lives and get out of poverty. There's been nothing until now. All Shido has done is show the world what was hidden.
2 weeks after the disaster, residents are trying to live a normal life. Small businesses are open again. Some of the rubble has been cleared away, but nothing has been forgotten. Francois Bayrou must regain their trust. In the emergency shelters, volunteers are also tired. They're the ones who are managing the humanitarian aid.
It's a little bit big, isn't it?
Like dozens of volunteers, Alice Purnell comes here every day.
No one is helping us. It's unacceptable that it's volunteers who are doing this. It's complete abandonment. The people staying here are the real victims.
Francois Bayrou has arrived in Mayotte and will have to face the discontent from the people here. Insecurity, access to water and education are the key issues during this visit.
Right, so there were obviously communication campaigns, but this shows that, first of all, there was the idea that there was an ability to react, and an ability to respond to natural disasters, right? And then there's this perceived neglect by the residents, right? The fact that there's this idea of a double standard between, well, the hexagonal France and the overseas France, including the overseas department, including Mayotte. And so, of course, since there were tensions, there were political hijacking. I'm thinking about Marine Le Pen, who visited Mayotte. So I'm gonna show you the article in France. So this is Le Point. This is an article from this is a right wing newspaper, right? So I couldn't find anything in English about this, about her visit, but basically what she says, all right, I came here to listen to the people, but she also says, nous n'avons pas été les premiers à alerter sur le problème de l'immigration. So she managed to push the problem, the issue, which was a natural disaster, and to say, basically, we weren't the first one to talk about immigration. So she said, she went there and she said, well, we warned you about immigration, you didn't listen. So yeah, she basically shifted the natural disaster and poverty perspective to illegal immigration perspective. And Emmanuel Macron answered to the far right criticism. So Macron was in angry exchange with the residents of Mayotte, of cyclone hit Mayotte. Right, we're gonna watch the video.
Cyclone hit Mayotte's neighbourhood confronted French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday. They told him they still didn't have access to drinkable water, nearly a week after Cyclone Chido hit the island. Mayotte is France's poorest overseas territory, and as Macron walked among the wreckage, residents pleaded with him.
France, which cares about Mayotte, has to show solidarity with all of them. The Muslims, the whites, the Mauritians and the Malagasy people. They really have to help us. They have to help us. We stand together. Look, this is the land of 1,000 smiles. Everyone's happy, even in front of a disaster. We really need to prove that France is with us and that France loves Mayotte.
Cyclone Chido is the worst storm the territory has faced in 90 years. Mayotte officials have only been able to confirm 31 fatalities, but some have said they fear thousands could have been killed. The worst affected neighbourhoods, hillside shanty towns, are yet to be reached by rescue workers. Macron extended his visit to Mayotte to spend more time surveying the damage. He told reporters on Friday that France had invested heavily in Mayotte, but that its institutions could not keep up with the arrival of undocumented migrants. He told the islanders authorities were scaling up distributions and that they could count on him.
All right, so basically, my analysis of this issue would be that I'm gonna do that. So that you can see me. Right, so basically Macron's stance on immigration aligns with the right-wing position in prioritizing containment and control over humanitarian solutions or integration efforts, for instance. And so we can say that this is basically an overlap that aims at neutralizing far-right critiques. And again, this is a sign that like liberals tend to align with the right and far rights because there's this effort to maintain the existing socioeconomic and political order rather than challenging structural issues that actually create the crisis. I'm thinking, inequality. I'm thinking lack of development in neighboring regions. And so what they do is that they frame the problem as one of like management rather than addressing actual root causes, right? So, like for example, like global inequalities or just like the impacts of our colonial history, because France was like a huge colonial empire. And so doing this, they contribute to this idea that like immigration should be considered a security threat. And like this case of Mayotte and the political hijacking and the way the Macron responds, Macron who's a liberal, right, by Americans, by international standards. By French standards, he would be considered right-wing, but by American standards, he would be considered a liberal. He would be considered a Democrat. I think so. He would be like kind of like Joe Biden, right? So, but I think that liberals tend to prioritize tactics. They say at least that they tend to prioritize tactics over ideology, but doing so they adopt elements of the far right rhetoric, right? So under the guise of moderation, they enable right-wing policies, they legitimize the far right rhetoric, and they actually reinforce the status quo rather than challenging it. And yeah, here again we can see that ultimately they shift France further to the right. So yeah, there's nothing else to say. Like that's why it's happening right now. Anyway, that was quicker than what was previously done. Again, I'm gonna take a break. We're going to carry on playing Kingdom Hearts one final mix. That was a brutal transition. But like, yeah, again, if you like what you're watching, follow me on Twitch and like and subscribe feel free to like and subscribe on YouTube. You don't have to. It will help me. See you in a bit.